Welcome back to Distorted Opinions. Once again, I'm joined by Matt and Ted, and guys, I think this is the longest hiatus we've taken between recording shows, and we're actually filming this episode just a few short weeks before Christmas. So you've probably guessed it, this is our holiday special. Today, we're going to be talking about some of our favorite holiday songs, and hopefully be able to give you some playlist ideas for a festive holiday season. I know it's a really weird year this year. I can't really figure out whether or not people are feeling festive or not festive, because I think I've seen more holiday decorations going up prior to Thanksgiving than I've ever seen in my entire life. And so I don't know if that's a sign that people are feeling festive or not, but one way or another, hopefully we'll help you get into the holiday spirit with this episode.
I mean, I still need to put up the Christmas tree, and I'm planning on doing that this afternoon, but I mean, we usually day after Thanksgiving, the tree goes up, but no one's going to see it. I mean, we're not, I don't know. It kind of changes the vibe a little bit.
Do you put it in the window?
I'm just lazy.
Yeah, by the slider.
Okay.
In the back.
So it's the back. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I haven't put up my tree either, and that's also on my to-do list for today, but we put our tree in the big picture window so at least people on the street can see it, and it's the same as any year, basically. But yeah, no, I feel you. It was really bizarre. This was the earliest I put up Christmas decorations this year, and the only reason I did it before Thanksgiving was because it was warm outside here in New England, and it seemed like the ideal time to stand outside and hang up Christmas lights, as opposed to when I normally do it, which is usually when it's like 20 degrees out and there's a heavy breeze. And for those who don't live in New England, we just had our first snow here, and it seems that snow has iced over and would not be a fun time hanging up Christmas lights. I'm just saying.
So yesterday would have been perfect if you're going
you should have. Yesterday would have been the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Actually, I waited until late in the evening to snow blow, and that was probably a mistake because it was really heavy and kind of raining at that point. So I was drenched by the time I came in. Yeah. So anyway, now that we veered off into a Christmas decoration discussion, which I think is another show entirely, let's get right into Christmas music here. I know we've all got a wide variety of songs based off the discussion before the show. If you guys want, I'm happy to start, or if one of you wants to.
Well, I think Matt has the classics. I feel like, Matt, you should start off with the classics, and then we'll veer into some alternative items.
Okay.
Indeed. Well, classics. Oh, wow. I mean, there's just a slew of just classics out there. And, you got "It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year."
We're going to be immediately flagged for copyright. That was too good.
But I don't need to pick out any music now to put under
That's
that.
right, because he's going to sing it. That's cool.
But we can just make up our own. We can make up our own jingles, like "Jingle bells, our feet may smell, distorted opinion rules. Check us out on our platforms. If you don't, you are a fool." Hey.
I mean,
you never know.
Could use a little rework, but I like where you're going.
I tried. That was my shower.
New classic. Okay.
That was my shower thought.
Well,
I tried my best to go ahead and be festive with this episode and whatnot. And for those that can't see, I'm wearing a Star Wars themed Christmas shirt saying "This Sithmas I feel," and then of course it has all stormtrooper helmets, because you could easily tell from their facial expressions what they're feeling and whatnot. But jumping back in, I mean, there's so many classics out there. And of course, if I went through every single one of them, no one would have a chance to go ahead and talk about their list. So I'm going to try to make this as short as possible. But when we're thinking about classics, everyone's thinking about, the day after Thanksgiving, radio stations instantly go right to the music station, go right into the Christmas themes, especially those classic rock stations, the soft rock stations, they do everything. And they usually have that on until at least, after the new year, then they get back to normal. But some of the classics that
Kat's really wanted to chime in on some Christmas
picks. I knew
It's-
he was
it's
gonna do
fun.
this. I'm sorry.
Oh no! Don't even worry. Hey, listen, we gotta have an audience, and Cat
Yeah.
Cat
We have
just
a
Here
wanted to
every
let us know.
week.
A li-
He's one of
a
our
live viewer.
regulars.
I don't
That's
think
right.
Meow Mix is a Christmas Carol, but we could figure
Is that one that Bing did? Did he do that one?
I think so. Or it might be Fred Astaire. But speaking of Fred Astaire, I don't know about you guys, but I grew up, watching those kind of claymation animation movies, and one that sticks out is the Santa Claus is Coming to Town, and that featuring Fred Astaire. So I never really knew about Fred Astaire until I went back into his history of like who he was, and he wasn't just so much of a just made up character, but he was an actual like artist himself, a dance artist as well. So I checked out some previous movies of his and some, shows of his of doing Christmas Carol songs, and I gotta say that it just brings a whole nother element as far as the music that's brought to those animations as well. So Fred Astaire is just one of those people that not only can he dance very well, but he also has got a very distinctive voice. And speaking of distinctive voices, that jumps right into then another artist named Ella Fitzgerald. And Ella Fitzgerald is just everywhere when we're thinking about Christmas. You have, I feel like when listening to Ella Fitzgerald, she's got this, and of course now my cat's now scratching at the door. Who's next? Ted, your cat's next.
I know. It'll be a matter of time.
But when I'm thinking of Ella Fitzgerald, I'm thinking of like another version of Judy Garland, and I'm just head over heels for Judy Garland, and it's just a shame that she didn't extend her life with with what she could have produced and whatnot. But Ella Fitzgerald has just got like a very distinctive tone when it comes down to her singing. Plus, when she also improvises a lot in some of her songs. So some of the songs, especially with Christmas songs that she improvises, is Let It Snow. And when you listen to Let It Snow, she's got like, it's kind of like a upbeat type of tune, but then after she does the the traditional Let It Snow, Let It Snow, Let It Snow, then she goes right almost kind of like into like a scattish type of theme. And it's definitely like toe tapping. So, for those that, haven't listened to, Ella Fitzgerald version, I definitely highly recommend the Let It Snow version, especially for this time. It's very upbeat. Christmas tunes don't necessarily have to be so mellow. They could be uplifting too. And I'm sure that we'll be talking about that later on in this episode.
And to jump in on Ella, definitely familiar and have listened to a lot of her songs, and I don't believe I've listened to Christmas songs by her in specifically, but definitely I'm a big fan, and I do enjoy the soul and the tone in her voice. So it definitely a good recommendation, 100%.
Very, very, very much so.
Agreed.
When I'm thinking of Christmas, another classic is brought up, and trust me, we'll mention him because this would not be an episode if we didn't mention him. But Bing Crosby. I mean, I think there's not one person in this world that doesn't know who Bing Crosby is, and if they don't know him by face, they know him by voice. Whether you watch the movie, White Christmas with Bing in it, or listen to his version of White Christmas, Bing has got that, that deep bluesy type of, elemental voice as well. And also another, he's also another one that has featured, timeless classics of, traditional Christmas, holiday tunes. I think
like
one of my
go ahead.
Sure.
Sorry, I don't mean to jump in on that, but I was just going to quickly say that Bing definitely has the voice that almost defines that whole era in a sense, because he's so everywhere. So if you think of, I don't know, want to call it the 40s, like that, just general style, you think, that sound that Bing has, and then the other, I mean, I feel like it's him and the other super well-known artist that I can't, the name just disappeared out of my head, and it's super obvious. Frank Sinatra. There we go. Yeah,
yep.
super obvious. But I feel like Frank and Bing both have a very similar tone in their voice, very bassy, very soothing. So definitely
100%.
kind of defines the era, if you will, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Nope, 100%.
My distorted opinion.
So yeah, I completely agree, Ted, and whatnot, and he's, again, he's one of those timeless classics too, that, even when you're hearing Christmas traditional classics on the radio or even satellite, that eventually Bing is popping up at least once every hour, maybe even twice. That just goes to show the library of music he's got. But again, there's so many. If anything that I really appreciate with Bing is he's also collaborated with a lot of artists as well. And one of my favorite collaborations that he's done with was actually with David Bowie. So he did in the 1980s. It was like this cross between, Peace on Earth and Little Drummer Boy. And it was almost like a little skit. And actually, Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly did a spoof of it, which I highly recommend for those viewers out there who are Will Ferrell fans or John C. Reilly fans to check out, Bing and David Bowie. And basically, to make this quick and short, David comes and sees Bing, and he's like, "Oh, hey, you're a piano player, you're a musician," and he's like, "Yeah, I'm Bing." He's like, "Oh, I've heard your stuff," and they collaborate and they sing "Little Drummer Boy" and "Peace on Earth," and Bing is doing the harmonies to "Little Drummer Boy," while David Bowie is doing "Peace on Earth," and then in the middle, when they bridge, they harmonize with almost like a separate piece of music that's in that song. So it's one of my personal favorites. At least listened to that a handful of times during this time, especially last night. So it's just a classic. There are definitely tunes out there that everyone can relate to that hold a special place in our hearts and our souls and whatnot. And if anything, that Bing is definitely one of those, especially growing up with, big family, that, he's everywhere and whatnot. So, as much as, I could go jumping right into different artists and whatnot, I think those three different artists are, a great start to go ahead and open up this episode with and whatnot. But while there's classics, there's also modern versions too. Okay, so
a lot of modern versions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So with that being said, Ted, you want to jump right into maybe
sure.
the modern version?
In looking through this, and I figured one of you would mention Trans-Siberian Orchestra because it's just a general
So
across
I had a note that I wasn't going to talk about it because
I told myself I wasn't going to talk about that either because somebody was going to do it, and we all had the same mental note. But okay, so I'll take the floor. Trans-Siberian Orchestra is obvious, right? Super, the heavy rocking edge with all those Christmas classics. But a few others that want to mention. Twisted Sister has two pretty interesting songs that they've put out, and there's music videos on YouTube. They did "O Come All Ye Faithful" in the vibe of the "We're Not Gonna Take It."
I literally was just about to jump in and say, was it too "We're Not Gonna Take It"?
Well, yeah, but they just changed the lyrics to it starts with a cowbell and everything. So it's an interesting cover. So definitely a good tune.
I gotta check that out.
And then they have another one actually titled Heavy Metal Christmas, according to this video, but it's basically the 12 days of Christmas, but they change all the different items into like 4 cases of Jack, and just like the drugs, rock and roll, party, whatever.
5 lines of coke.
No, 4 quarts of Jack, 3 studded belts, 2 pairs of spandex pants, and a tattoo of Ozzy. 6 cans of hairspray, 7 leather jackets, 8 pentagrams, 9 tattered t-shirts, 10 pairs of platforms, 11 black mascaras, and then 12 silver crosses.
What was 5?
5 was skull earrings.
Okay.
5
I kind of like Matt's version better.
Okay.
So-
I was checking to see if there was gonna be like any like groupie mentions or maybe drug related, but hey, I guess we'll go with 2 spandex and 10 platform shoes. Why not?
Yeah, so that
That's a
one's
lot of laundry for
yeah.
spandex.
So there's a music video for that, or actual
man.
video of them playing that. So that's pretty entertaining. But then there is a Run Run Rudolph by Lemmy that is phenomenal.
Yes.
I mean, his
It
voice
is.
is already super rock and roll, and just like how gruff, and I mean, it's slightly monotone. Like, he doesn't really give too much inflection. It's just kind of leans in and has that
It's got the signature Lemmy sound.
yeah, that the grit in the voice
Yeah.
and that tone. But Run Run Rudolph, that version is really, really good. Alice Cooper has Santa Claus is Coming to Town, and Claus, Claws, of course. That's another good one. And then I guess my other pick to mention is Corey Taylor put out a song called Xmas, but it's basically 2.5 minutes of not screw Christmas, and it's it's an interesting take, and I encourage, if anyone's a fan of Corey Taylor, highly, and you haven't seen this, I recommend watching the video. Definitely some innuendos in there and some jokes, and it's definitely a more comical rock tune for Christmas, as opposed to a true copy of a classic, if you will. But yeah, so that one is another good one that I found for today. So I mean, definitely there's plenty of other rock covers and versions of different things, but for something different and unique, definitely wanted to highlight those 5. So yeah, so that's my
I like it.
little input from the rock metal end. So Kayla, I know you're in a different direction altogether.
Yeah.
So we've really rounded out this whole conversation with the classics, the rock, and then what you've got to talk about for today's episode.
Yeah, so Ted, I kind of figured you were probably going to go with some rock picks, so I avoided
What gave
those.
it away?
History.
Right?
And I wasn't quite sure where Matt was going to go. So, the one note, like I said, that I did have was that I was not really going to spend a lot of time on Trans-Siberian Orchestra, just because I think everybody knows them. If you've ever seen any of the YouTube videos with a house that's been decorated with a light show, or there've been several car commercials over the years, you've heard Trans-Siberian Orchestra, because most times that's what people use.
Not to be confused with Metallica.
That's right.
for those
Who
that
also
understand-
played with an orchestra.
That's
Yes,
right.
who did. A lot of people get mixed up that when they hear Carol of the Bells by Trans-Siberian Orchestra, it's Metallica. It is not Metallica. I don't care what anyone says. Try to Google it. You will probably see, even Google saying Metallica Carol of the Bells. It's Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
I will throw a little fun fact in there, and I don't know if this is well known, and I hope I'm not stating inaccurate information here, but I'm pretty sure Marty Friedman, who played with Megadeth back in the day, played with Trans-Siberian Orchestra for a while. So
That
some of that
sounds right. I think
guitar that you're hearing has a bit of a Megadeth sound to it, maybe.
Yeah.
But
But
yeah,
it's not
no, it's
Metallica.
not. It's not Metallica. No, two different bands.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard that as well. So that seems familiar to me.
I read it somewhere a long time ago, but I don't remember how long he played with them. I don't think he's currently, well, not that they're probably playing at the moment, but I don't think he's played with them recently. But you know that they do have a similar sound, but yeah, not Metallica. What I'm not gonna pick on this list is that Mariah Carey song that gets overplayed every year. That much I can tell you right now.
And we're done.
And this is the end of the
Matt.
episode. We're closing
Merry
this
Christmas.
one down. That song came up. No, thank you.
So, you know, one of the things that I really like about this time of year, I've mentioned in previous shows that I listen when I am driving, which I'm not doing a lot of right now. I listen to a lot of Sirius XM satellite radio, and this time of year, not only can you hear a lot of holiday music on their regular stations, but they have a number of stations that are dedicated to just different styles of holiday music. And so I find myself often jumping around between the different holiday stations to listen to some things that are maybe not more the traditional stuff that Matt talked about, although they certainly do have some of that. And they have some stations that play some of the stuff that Ted talked about. But some of the stuff that kind of stood out to me, and I'll let you in on a little secret. I have an app on both my phone and my iPad that I use quite a bit when I'm either driving around or in the house listening to music called SoundHound. If you're not familiar with it, you start it up and it will listen to a song that's playing. If it knows what the song is, you can have it add the song to a Spotify playlist.
Not a sponsor. Not a sponsor.
No, not a sponsor, but I'm just saying this is
But if
how
you
I
want to sponsor
save
us,
my tunes.
more than happy to.
That's right. We'll take a sponsorship, SoundHound.
That's right.
So I've got a massive playlist of songs that I've accumulated from using SoundHound over the last few years, and often I'll go through and I'll separate that into other playlists. And so I have a whole holiday playlist of music that a lot of it probably came from stuff that I heard on some of the various Sirius stations. So my list is probably a little more eclectic compared to what Matt and Ted have talked about. The first thing, and this is in no particular order, but Booker T and the MGs. If you're not familiar with Booker T and the MGs, they do a song called Green Onions, which I think a lot of people have probably heard. And if you've played Grand Theft Auto, I forget which one it was. I want to say San Andreas, but I don't think it was that one. The radio stations, one of the stations has Green Onions as one of the songs. And I guarantee you, if you go look it up, you've heard the song. You may just not know who did it. But Booker T and the MGs did a version of Jingle Bells on their 1966 album In the Christmas Spirit. It's got more of a soul and R&B sound. It opens up with bells, and then one of the things that is a very distinct sound to Booker T and the MGs is the Hammond B3 organ. There's a lot of the Hammond B3 organ in their music, and this is no exception. It's got a swinging blues guitar solo, and I just don't know how you can't not tap your foot and bob your head to this song, because it's a great
catchy.
song. I love it. Yeah, it's catchy. It really is. If you haven't heard it, give it a listen. And then kind of in the same vein, B.B. King does a version of I'll Be Home for Christmas on the 2001 album, A Christmas Celebration of Hope. Who doesn't love B.B. King? And who doesn't love great blues? I mean, come on. Again, this is another song that's got some really bluesy Hammond B3 organ. You're going to find that this is kind of a theme with some of the songs that I've picked. It's an instrumental track. And it features a lot of tracks that are written by B.B. King as well as other well-known blues artists. But this song in particular, I really love. It's classic B.B. King. Give it a listen. And then going a little more off the beaten path here, I know Matt mentioned Let It Snow, the Ella Fitzgerald version. And I hope I'm not going to butcher the name of this artist. But there's an artist by the name of Philous, F-I-L-O-U-S. And she does a cover of Let It Snow that came out in 2016. I actually heard this on a station that I listen to quite a bit that, brace yourselves because this may be shocking to some people. It's the Chill station on Sirius XM, which I
love
listen
that
to
station.
a lot. Oh, good. It's not just me. Okay.
It's preset number 1 on mine.
It's not 1 for me. I think it's 3. So it's up there. 1 is obviously I've got Octane and then Lithium, and then I think 3 is Chill.
AAF.
I love that station.
No, not that one.
Oh.
The new AAF.
Oh.
Oh, just kidding. Joke.
God. Yeah, no, that left my preset back in February.
So, for anyone that doesn't get that reference, the Boston rock radio station WAAF went off the air. It was converted over to a Christian rock station back in February. So, the long and true fans of WAAF are very resentful for the current usage of that particular frequency, unfortunately. So
just shy of 50 years of being on the air playing rock and heavy metal in the Boston area, they got bought out by, of all things, a Christian rock station that paid cash for the frequency with no advertisements or anything. So anyway, I'm gonna end up veering off into another show if that might come into our New Year's, our end of the year episode.
Sorry,
the
we just
worst.
handed all the audience a little bit of coal, but we'll get back.
yeah,
that's right. So yes, to answer your question, no, that is not a preset on any of my radios anymore. I'm not even gonna get into it, but yeah. So the Chill station. I don't know whether or not I heard this song on that station or if it was one of the other holiday stations, but this version of Let It Snow, I really like. It's a chill electronic cover. It's a traditional holiday tune, but she put her own touches on it. It's laid back, relaxing. It's got some chill guitar, because you got to have the guitar. But it's a really great version of the song. If you haven't heard it, I recommend checking it out. It feels wintry to me. It's very different from the Ella Fitzgerald version, but in a good way, I think. And then kind of again in that same vein is an artist that most people probably haven't heard of because he's not well known in the traditional sense. There's a guy on YouTube by the name of Quist, Quist. And I discovered him actually through my guitar teacher, Greg, when I was taking a lesson with him online earlier this year when the pandemic first started. If you've never taken guitar lessons, one of the things about a guitar lesson, or at least my experience with lessons with Greg, was that if you're playing in person with a teacher, typically you play together. So he would play the rhythm part of a song and I would play the lead, or whatever it needed to be. That's really hard to do in a pandemic where everything's online, because as we've kind of talked about in trying to figure out how we can jam remotely, it's just not feasible with internet delays and noise cancellation and those sorts of things, which makes it hard if you're playing a lesson with somebody and they want you to play along with some chords or something. It's not really easy to do that. So Greg said, go check out this guy Quist on YouTube. He does a bunch of backing tracks, and he has different ones that allow you to play different modes or scales depending on what you're looking to do. And so as a lonely guitar player with no one to play music with during quarantine, I've found myself quite often heading over to Quist's YouTube channel and playing to some of his backing tracks. But I also discovered that he has some original tunes that are both available on YouTube as well as Spotify. And he has one called We Wish You a Chill Hop Christmas, which, as you can imagine, is a twist on We Wish You a Merry Christmas. And it's a very electronic backing track, but there's lots of guitar. He's a phenomenal guitar player. And so not only does he have great backing tracks, but he also just has, if you listen to some of his original stuff, it's fantastic. Plus, if you listen to the backing tracks, he usually opens with him playing a bit of a solo with whatever mode or scale that track is designed for, which usually leaves me feeling rather inferior by the time I get ready to try and play to the backing track myself, because I can't play what he's trying to play. But really, really cool stuff. This song in particular, I really enjoy. Like I said, it's in that same vein as the Phyllis track, Let It Snow. And then going a little bit into some more jazzy stuff, Roy Hargrove and Christian McBride do a version of Frosty the Snowman, which was released on the 1996 album Jazz for Joy, a Verve Christmas album. And what do I love besides blues, good blues, and of course metal and rock? Excellent jazz. I love really good jazz, and this song is just that. It's a great jazz rendition of a holiday classic. You have Roy Hargrove on trumpet and Christian McBride on upright bass, so of course there's some great trumpet and bass solos. and I just love this song. If you haven't heard it, another great one to check out. And I'm almost through my list.
No, you're fine. I was
Ted-
just thinking that I haven't
Good,
listened to
good.
jazz in a long time. Definitely. I mean, obviously, we were all in jazz band back in the day in high school, and certainly have an interest and enjoy that style. But it's certainly one that I've kind of let go or I've gotten away from. But certainly feel like I need to revisit. So definitely interested in hearing that song and
Yeah.
some other recommendations. Just to get back into it, because it's certainly a very cool style, and from a drumming standpoint, jazz drums is super hard compared to rock. So if you're a drummer that can play jazz and pretty well, your options are far wider than someone that's confined to just being a rock drummer, I should say.
I'd go out on a limb, and I think I mentioned this in a previous show too when we had Marcus on, because we talked quite a bit about jazz music with Marcus because that's kind of his genre. I would go out on a limb and say that the same thing applies to jazz guitar as well as maybe even jazz bass. I think it is really challenging to play jazz guitar well, and I think a lot of it is, again, something we talked about on another show. You can hide a lot of bad playing with distortion and other effects, but you can't hide bad playing with clean guitar, and jazz is mostly clean guitar. And so I have a lot of respect for really fantastic jazz guitar players. I don't know much about jazz drumming, but I think we talked about that during the drumsticks episode too. Jazz drumming, I'm sure, is, like you said, harder than probably any other genre.
And it's just the cadence of what you're keeping time with. It's not your standard 1, 2, 3, 4. Very in a basic sense. It's certainly, I don't know.
You're probably playing lighter too, I would think, because
you can,
of the
but
style.
I mean,
Strokes.
I'm not a jazz drummer. In my attempts, I mean, I wouldn't even want to be performing in public in any jazz capacity. Not that confident with it, but certainly I do respect drummers that can do it and do it well, because as you said, I do think that it does bring a lot of attention to that fine details, and you can't kind of mask your mistakes in that particular. I mean, I think that kind of sums it all up, and why it's such a really interesting genre at the same time.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of good jazz players out there, and then you have musicians out there that are pretty unique to other instruments as well. Such as you get jazz flute from Ron Burgundy.
Yeah, the jazz flute.
He's a grad.
Yeah.
Well, sorry,
That's right.
Yaz flute.
Yeah, that's right.
Yaz flute. Definitely recommend checking out some of his stuff. So you have a Christmas album out there.
Oh
Yeah,
boy.
good old Ron Burgundy.
Oh man. Yeah. So.
Yeah, sorry to
back on
derail,
the track.
but
No, that's okay. That's.
made me think of it.
I think we just entered another show topic there that we might want to note for future possible consideration. But
The Legend of Ron Burgundy. We could definitely talk about that.
oh Lord. So I was gonna jump to another track, but I'll stick with the jazz for 1 second here. So, sticking with something that's kind of along the lines of the classics that Matt talked about, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because this is another one I think a lot of people are probably familiar with. If you've ever watched any of the Peanuts cartoons, the Vince Guaraldi trio has, I mean, if you've heard them in the Peanuts cartoons, you can probably pick them out in any other song they've done because they have a very unique sound, distinctive sound with the piano. But a song of theirs that I always immediately think Christmas when I hear it. Christmas time is here. And if you've seen the Peanuts Christmas, a Charlie Brown Christmas, you've heard this song. It's very well known. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but
throughout
it is one of my...
throughout the whole movie.
Yeah,
Majority of it.
Yeah, I think so. And when it's not, I think they wrote most of the other music for it, so it's all got a similar sound. So I mean, you're hearing the Vince Guaraldi trio throughout the entirety of that movie. If you've never seen it, which I can't imagine that there's anybody who hasn't seen that movie, check it out. It's got some real classic Christmas songs that I think most people will hear and think, oh, okay, that's Christmas.
Kayla, at least that's one movie you saw.
Oh, I've
That's
seen
true.
the Peanuts movies. If it's
Touche.
come out,
That was a quick. Yeah,
if it's
exactly.
at least 40 or 50 years old, I've probably been more likely
So
to
the catalog
to have
is,
seen it.
you're working through the backlog there.
Classic TV shows is more my thing. Recent movies, not so much, as we've discussed in other shows. So yes, I have seen the Peanuts Christmas. I've seen the Charlie Brown is a great pumpkin Charlie Brown or whatever the
Frosty the
Halloween one
Snowman.
is. I've seen Frosty. I have. Actually, Frosty was on last weekend, and I saw it on TV. So yes, I've seen Frosty
All right.
recently. And then there was
good.
a sequel to Frosty the Snowman that was god awful. That looked like, I actually had to go look it up because I thought perhaps Charles Schultz had animated it. It looked like a Charlie Brown cartoon, and they even the main character's name was Charlie, and they even made him look a little bit like Charlie Brown. Like, I'm surprised there wasn't a lawsuit for some sort of copyright infringement on that, because it looked like it would have been a Charlie Brown movie, but it was Frosty the Snowman. John Goodman was doing the voice of Frosty, but it was awful. It was, I wouldn't recommend watching it. It was not a good,
I'm
yeah,
definitely
no.
gonna go see it.
If you're gonna watch Frosty, I'd recommend sticking to the original. I didn't even know there was a sequel until last weekend.
It's only bad if he doesn't say "Happy Birthday." If he doesn't, then automatically it's crap.
Does he? I don't think he does. I don't know.
Oh,
I don't
then.
remember. Excuse me. Now I'm gonna get hit with a coughing attack. So, 2 more songs on my list, and now I'm gonna jump kind of more into the rock genre. Shinedown did a track in 2006, Happy Christmas, the War is Over, and you may be familiar with this as a John Lennon song. They covered it. It has that well-known Shinedown sound. If you've heard Shinedown, again, they're another group that I think, again, it boils down to the vocals. We've talked about this in other shows too. The vocalist, I think, really kind of makes the uniqueness of any band, and so you hear it, you know it's Shinedown. This song in general is not one of my favorite holiday tunes, but I do really enjoy this cover. If you haven't heard it, check it out. And I don't know, maybe, I don't know what you guys think, maybe we can make another special holiday playlist on Spotify with some of these picks for anybody who might
I
want to
think that
just
would be
pull up our
pretty
playlist.
interesting, actually. For all the songs that we've talked about, I mean, because that would
Yeah.
give a fair number
Eclectic.
for a playlist.
It would
Yeah.
it would also be very eclectic, much like the acoustic playlist ended up being by the time I was done with it. So, so yeah, okay. So I'll put together a playlist, and we'll put the link in the description of the show. And if you're watching the video version, I'll put it on screen as well. But we'll put all these into a playlist, and maybe we'll add a few more as we get closer to the holidays here. But the last artist that I have on my list here, because I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention him, is Gary Hoey. I don't know how well Gary Hoey is really known. I've heard his stuff because AAF used to play a couple of his Christmas songs when it got closer to the holidays. I think actually Greg Hill, who was the morning show host for almost 30 years, had done a fundraiser around the holidays, the Walk and Rock for Change, where people could make donations to hear really obscure songs, even stuff that was not in their
People
typical...
were donating and then intentionally playing like Britney Spears.
Yeah.
And I mean, literally requests to play anything. And as much as WAAF was the rock station, there were certainly some people trolling and playing obscure or ridiculous songs just because they could, and
they
provided
do
they
it.
made the donation. So
They had to, the more ridiculous and out of the realm of what they usually played, the more they asked people to donate to hear the song. So if you heard something that was really unusual for that station, there was a good chance somebody paid several $100
donated
to hear it.
donated an extensive bit more
for the
than-
food bank.
Right.
Yeah. And so, like, that was actually one of my favorite times of the year to listen to AAF, and particularly the morning show, because you would hear all kinds of crazy stuff. And so I feel like maybe that's where I first heard Gary Hoey. Somebody might have put in a request to hear one of his Christmas songs, but he's got a lot of really great rock and metal Christmas covers. He's got a couple of albums, Ho Ho Hoey Christmas, they're called, and I think there might be two of them. I highly recommend checking him out if you prefer more of the rock heavy metal genre of Christmas tunes along the lines of what Ted talked about. He's an awesome guitarist. He's also an awesome guy. I was fortunate that I got to see him play at the Bull Run here in Shirley a few years back, and my dad and I got to meet him after the show. He puts on a great live show. He's super down to earth. Really awesome guitar player. Definitely check out his Christmas stuff if that's your thing. And I'll throw a couple of his songs into the playlist as well, as long as they're on Spotify. So that is it for my list. Believe it or not, that was really narrowed down because I had so many more that I could have talked about. And I knew you guys were going to probably have a long list as well. So go ahead, Matt.
Just thinking of this now, and I had to Google it because it was literally on the tip of my tongue in the beginning of the show, and now I finally snapped. But we were talking about all different genres of holiday traditional tunes, from classics to metal to modern to blues. But there's also comedy classics too. And I feel like this show wouldn't have been 100% without referencing the 1987 album by Bob Rivers called Twisted Christmas.
Grandma got run over by a reindeer.
And if you have, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not heard this album, I suggest that you go listen to this whole album.
It's your pick of the week.
It's not the
whole
pick
album.
of the week.
Just pick of the week.
It's not the pick of the week, but I mean, we're one talk about it. Some of it might be a little suggestive, so if you got little ones around, you might want to turn it around, especially if
it's Christmas.
Yep.
Was that Bob Rivers?
So.
Okay.
And then there's also a song called The Chimney Song, which is very suggestive. So unless you want to destroy little kid dreams about Santa Claus, I suggest listen to that on your own. It is not only hysterical sober, but is also hysterical completely hammered. So I definitely highly recommend it. Twisted Christmas, not Twisted Sister, Twisted Christmas by Bob Rivers. But that is a great, if you want a lot of laughs, especially for those that like a lot of, comedy, that is probably, the top, my personal opinion, the number one comedic Christmas album for this time, because it is just hysterical. Even classic radio stations play the 12 Pains of Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, just a little segment is, when they're saying hangovers, rigging up the lights and finding a Christmas tree. I mean, you probably heard those lyrics, on the radios. Yep. That's the 12 Pains of Christmas by Bob Rivers. So definitely recommend listening to that one.
I love that song.
I forgot all about that. It's been a little while since I thought about that.
I actually thought you were going to bring up Adam Sandler when you brought up Christmas comedy, even though that would be Hanukkah.
Eight crazy nights.
Yes. I thought for sure that's where you were going. I totally forgot all about Bob Rivers, and he's got some real classics that, again, you would have heard if you were in the Boston area.
Chipmunks roasting over an open fire.
Oh, God, that was him, too. That's right. Oh, man. Yeah, he had a lot of classics, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Probably the best one on that one is it's again, there's a little spoiler alert for anyone listening, so might want to block this one out. But it's Silent Night, but it's Elvis Presley, and he's talking about what Christmas is about, and in his monologue, he's talking about like, oh hey, pass the potatoes, like love is about glistening crispy ham. Oh yeah, this ham tastes good. And you hear him like chomping away throughout the whole monologue. So I recommend that one, but that's a funny one.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, he's got some great stuff. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I had not even thought about the comedy genre, and he's really got a lot more classics than I remember.
Yellow Snow. I forgot. So many good ones.
Shoot. So, okay, so that wasn't your song of the week.
No, it wasn't. But I'm sure, with our audience, if whoever's listening to this, we're going to have a few people that are going to say, oh, please, Bob Rivers, please mention Bob Rivers, please mention, and we referenced it. So you are welcome.
Saved you an email or a voicemail. There you go.
Yes.
So, that being said, I think we're probably at the song of the week. Matt, do you want to talk about your actual song of the week pick while you're at it?
Yeah, we'll jump right into it. So it's not going to be a Bob Rivers tune, and it's not going to be a 40s, 50 classic. Okay. But what it is going to be is from the 1974 claymation called A Year Without a Santa Claus. That's the movie. But specifically the tune I Believe in Santa Claus. It was sang by Mickey Rooney and Ron Marshall, and it is just a phenomenal, warming, duet between these two gentlemen. And basically it's just explaining, like, the whole synopsis is, believing in Santa Claus, having that Christmas spirit. And when you're listening to the lyrics, it's more of like a story. It's more of like, how a kid could, how a little child could doubt the spirit of Christmas. But it's not so much of Santa Claus being, like, the song isn't about physically appearance of Santa Claus, but more of like, what's the reasoning behind Santa Claus. So when listening to the song, there's a lot of finger picking. I know we were talking about, I'm a huge, acoustic finger picking guy type of thing. So listening to this song, especially in the 70s, where it was more like that folky type of tuning, this song had a lot of that finger picking aspect as well. So listening to this, the two gentlemen duet, and the lyrics behind it, just really, it's always been a classic favorite of mine since, I was, a smaller child. So, even to this day, it's still a classic of mine. But the 1974 tune, I Believe in Santa Claus, from the claymation picture, A Year Without a Santa Claus.
Awesome.
And whatnot. So, Kayla, do you want to jump right into yours?
Sure. So, I know in the past we've had, usually with guests, where we have somebody who picks more than one song for the song of the week. And I'm going to do something that's a little bit different. And I'm going to actually do two picks that are the same song, but different renditions, because I couldn't make a decision on which one I wanted to pick. And I apologize if my mic is picking that up. My phone is buzzing. So I had originally actually had one picked, and then as I was going through my playlist last night, I heard this other version, and I couldn't decide which one to talk about. So my pick for this week is Greensleeves, and the first version
Not Green
is
Onions.
by Not Green Onions. Different song, different group. I don't know if Booker T and the MGs did a version of Greensleeves, but if they did, it's probably awesome. I'm gonna have to go look when we're done here. So the first version was done by Jimmy Smith, Grady Tate, and Kenny Burrell off the 1964 Christmas Cookin' album. It's kind of a swing jazz style with, again, lots of Hammond B3. If you haven't noticed the theme here, like, I really enjoy jazz with a Hammond B3. And it's got a fantastic jazz guitar solo. We talked about this. I have a high appreciation for jazz guitar, and I just love it, and this has plenty of that. So check out this version if you haven't heard it. But the version that I originally was going to talk about was actually a version that we did when I was in the UMass marching band, and unfortunately I don't think the full version of it is going to be available for me to share it. I have it because we were given a copy of it because it was recorded when we performed it, but I don't think I have permission to put it out there for everybody to listen to. So unfortunately, you're probably only going to get the little snippet that I can put into the video here, but we played this, I can't remember if it was either 2006 or 2007. There was a memorial for Walter Chestnut, who was a professor of music at UMass. I believe his specialty was trumpet, and Mr. Parks chose this tune for us to play in memory of him at the memorial. And we also played it at the end of every season. We had one final performance, which was a holiday parade. We paraded from UMass down to the town common, and it was called Merry Maple. And so we would gather at the town common, we'd play a bunch of holiday songs, and they would light up this big maple tree downtown with Christmas lights. And so Greensleeves was one of the songs that we would also play at that. And this particular arrangement of it, I love. I love hearing it around the holidays in particular. To this day, when I hear it, it still gives me goosebumps. There's just something about this version of it. I just love it. So this was originally the version I was going to pick, but then I heard the Jimmy Smith version when I was going through my playlist, and I couldn't not talk about that because it's got a really cool swing jazz vibe to it, which is also awesome, but very different from the version that we played in the marching band. So that is my pick for this week, the two versions of Greensleeves. Definitely at least check out the Jimmy Smith one, and I'll see if I can find the UMass marching band version, but like I said, I don't know that that's available for me to share online, so I may not be able to share that. So with that, and one more reminder, we do have a Spotify playlist that we put all of our pick of the weeks in every episode. So if you want to listen to any of the songs we talk about any episode, you can go to the description of the show and click on the link for that playlist. And then there have been a couple shows where we've done special playlists for that show, which we'll be doing for this, but we always put our Song of the Week picks into that Song of the Week playlist. So check it out. Link in the description of the show if you want to listen to those. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Ted to see what he's got for this week.
Well, I realized when I think about the holidays that I have a soft spot for the Nutcracker and the whole, I mean, it's just quintessential like Christmas tone to me. I mean, it's, I don't know. I find myself only listening to it around this time of the year, and I know it's not metal, but and a little off the beaten path for what I normally talk about. But Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker, the whole thing. I mean, I feel like when you listen to the whole album, obviously it's telling a story as part of the actual ballet and whatnot, but the way the music progresses and the different it just audibly telling the story as well, it really I don't know, I drive with that. So
is there anybody who doesn't have Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy stuck in their head right now? Because as soon as you said Nutcracker, it was like immediately
I mean, it definitely is basically like the theme for me of the season. When I do think of any sort of classical music, it definitely ties to Christmas to me. So it really stands out, and we didn't talk about it at all. Certainly, there's plenty of things we didn't talk about, but definitely we'll throw that one in the mix to make this an extra eclectic Spotify list, because we're talking obviously Corey Taylor and Twisted Sister, and now we're talking the Nutcracker all over the map.
Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy.
But yeah, Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairies is certainly the most notable of all those tracks, but I think any of them can be good standalone songs because I enjoy them all. So
yeah,
we'll go with that as my unusual pick for this week.
All right. Yeah, no, I think this is...
I like it.
Is this the first non-metal pick that you've made?
100%. Absolutely.
I think it is.
Oh, I know it is. I can tell you it is.
Nothing wrong with that, man. Nothing wrong with that. Awesome. All right. Well, I think we could go on for much longer talking about holiday music. I think we've probably reached a good point to wrap up the show here, but do you have a favorite holiday tune that maybe we didn't think of that you'd like to share with us? Or maybe you have a music-related topic that you'd like to talk about on the show? You can contact us, and there's a few ways to do that. You can leave us a voice message over on our Anchor page at anchor.fm/distortedopinions. While you're there, you can also find a link to all of our social media platforms as well as a partial list of where you can find the show in audio-only format. There are a lot of other platforms that are not listed on there, so if you don't see the platform you like to use, just search for Distorted Opinions on that platform. You'll probably find us, even though it's not listed. And you can also reach us the old-fashioned way by email. And Matt, I know it's been a few weeks, but do you want to try the email address?
Sure. You know what? I'm getting pretty good at this, but you could reach us at distortedopinionsshow@gmail.com.
He's made a note. He's never gonna forget that now.
It's good. It's classic. It's gonna be great.
Hey, for what it's worth, I've got a whole thing of notes with all of the important information for each show, and while it is written down, I think I have it memorized at this point, so I don't have to necessarily read it, but I'm not going to judge somebody for making a note if that's how you have to do it.
But, guys, we always say this and whatnot, we're getting notifications of a lot more followers, so thank you for spreading the word. We're getting, some followers that we never even heard of. So that's obviously, we're going to take that as friends of friends of friends. And again, it's, appreciative. Thank you again. We love doing this show, and we hope that you guys are loving this show as well. We're having a lot of fun. Everyone who's reaching out to us, saying they're, giving us their distorted opinions, and, letting us know what they think. Again, it's great. This is what makes this show and whatnot. But from all of us to you guys, happy holidays. Hope you guys are all safe during this time. And 2021, we're gonna have some big things coming up with the show. So it's
some fun changes.
Lots of
planned
fun
changes for the better.
That's
Indeed.
right.
So it's gonna be great. And so other than that, hope you all stay safe. Enjoy your cocos. Build some snowmen.
If it snows where you live,
That's right.
Pee in the snow if you can.
let's not do that.
And that's enough.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Join us next week. We'll be doing our end-of-year wrap-up, believe it or not. We're at the end of 2020. So, and like Matt and Ted said, we've got some changes coming in the new year. So we'll tell you more about that as it gets closer. But be sure to join us next week, because we'll be doing our wrap-up show, and it's going to be a good one. So you don't want to miss out. So with that, happy holidays, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.
Toodles.